think the question for a lot of fans really is, what is the purpose of the Phase 4 of the MCU? The whole arc just finished recently, and it appears to me we really do know what this arc was all about and the really important reason on why this particular arc needed to happen. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about the Phase 4 of the MCU, what it was all about, and why it not only sets up the future, but absolutely honors the past. Well, as many of you know, Phase 4 of the MCU has finally come to an end. This block closed out with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which is an absolute hit and is the 7th movie in Phase 4 that was accompanied by 7 live-action series. We also saw Disney Plus close up the phase with the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which was quite the blast for fans and something truly different. Now, Black Panther is still steamrolling ahead and doing really well, but it does wrap up Phase 4 and what Phase 4 really was about. Now, it's not really a deep dive of understanding here, because Phase 4 has clearly been, since the very first project, about grief. We actually opened Phase 4 with WandaVision, which was a fully entrenched story of Wanda learning to cope with the death of Vision. But then as we carried on, more and more grief accumulated. Bucky Barnes had to deal with the grief of what he'd done as a Winter Soldier. Shang-Chi faced the grief of his mother's death. The Eternals had the grief of losing Ajax. Peter Parker lost his Aunt May in No Way Home. Yelena Belova was head-on facing the grief she dealt with after losing Natasha. Oscar Isaac's Mark Spector's complete backstory and mental health condition, dissociative identity disorder, came from his horrible experiences of his family, which was full of pain and suffering. We saw Wanda's grief continue to grow and become something quite malevolent in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Thor lost Jane Foster in Thor: Love and Thunder. We faced the real-life death of Chadwick Boseman in Wakanda Forever. And then finally, in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, we dealt with Peter's sense of loss over Gamora's disappearance. Now, obviously, Phase 4 had a lot of purpose, and one of them was clearly to set up these new characters. But I think focusing on grief has been really important and something the MCU absolutely needed to do. Now, when everybody talks about these projects, they're often talking about the future. But I think it's really important here to focus not on the future, but on the past. Remember, we just went through an effective war to close out the MCU for Phase 3. Infinity War and Endgame were a conflict the heroes had never seen before. And like any war, there is a lot of fallout. There is loss, and the people who are involved in that conflict have a lot of emotions they need to process, very specifically grief. The idea that the heroes would just move on from Endgame like nothing had happened doesn't really work, and makes for a really disconjoined story. It often makes me think of role-playing games where the heroes are awakened in the middle of the night by some ferocious monster, only to jump up out of bed, grab their sword, simply to teach him some manners about waking up a weary traveler in the middle of the night. It has no emotion, it has no gut feeling. It's definitely not a real reaction. Real heroes really care, and these heroes lost a lot. This is why Phase 4 was so important. Without highlighting this grief, these heroes start to feel much more hollow, and makes it harder for us as fans to relate to their plight and feel invested in their journey. Now, obviously, Phase 4 had a couple of problems and things that should have happened didn't, but I think overall, the goals of the phase have been met. Marvel wanted to not only introduce all these new characters, but they wanted to highlight how the events of the first 3 phases actually impacted the existing heroes of the world, and I really do think they did an excellent job in telling that story. Now, obviously, whatever Phase 5 and Phase 6 have in store for us, we should be pretty excited. We know Marvel Studios is making some changes behind the scenes, streamlining some stuff, and focusing a little more on quality over quantity. Since as Phase 4 had 14 projects and more screen time than the first 3 phases, I think we probably should be prepared for a little bit of slowing of the pace, but hopefully quality is ultimately reflected by these changes. Now, obviously, we're going to cover everything MCU on this channel, and we're going to really do more deep dives into Phase 4, Phase 5, and the future of the MCU, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of the news. But until we know more, what do you guys think? How do you feel about Phase 4 of the MCU being focused on grief? And seeing these characters grieve, does it make them more real to you? Tell me what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you hit like, click subscribe, and if you don't ring that bell, you're not going to get any updates. Peace.